everyone, today we're going to be talking about the resonance and vocal weight interface and how to begin doing exercises with this. We're going to be taking all of the concepts we learned previously from the last two sessions and amalgamating them into one cohesive lesson set. The way I'm going to be demonstrating most of these exercises is by first demonstrating them, then I'll be doing them again, but with a bit of a gap in between sets so that you can follow along and practice with me. When you feel like you've finally figured out how to maneuver these things on your own, try and take them outside of this video and practice them completely on your own. Let's begin by just doing a simple scale throughout all of the different quadrants of the voice types.
I want you to first find this sound. In whatever way makes the most sense for you, you can jump right to this sound, this thin vocal weight and dark resonance. You can jump right to this sound, or you can try and find it using an existing exercise that we've used or using mimicry. Once you've found this sound, we are going to begin circling in a clockwise direction, first going up from this sound to a bright and thin sound, then to a bright and thick sound, then to a dark and thick sound, once again returning to a dark and thin sound. For this first demonstration, I am going to just do it on my own. You do not have to follow along, but if you want to, you're welcome to. Cat, 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 cat. Beat, 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 beat. Coat, 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 coat. Bought, 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 bought. And there you have it. Let's do that all together now this time. I'm going to demonstrate it first so you can hear how it sounds, and then I'll pause so that you can catch up to me. Here we go, starting in this position here. 3, 2, 1. Cat, cat,
cat, cat, cat. Awesome. All right. Next up, scaling our vocal weight. Beat, 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 beat. All right, awesome. Now we are going to scale our resonance back to a darker position. Here we go. Coat, 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 coat. All right, perfect. Now that you've done that, we are going to scale our our vocal weight back across one last time to a thin position. Here we go. Bought, 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 bought. Perfect. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and do the inverse direction this time. So this time I'm just going to do what I did in the second half there, provide you with the first set so you can hear the change, and then provide a little bit of a gap for you to practice it on your own. Here we go.
Starting in the same position here, and we're just going to scale in that counterclockwise direction, so going in the inverse direction. So once again, we're going to be using the same words, just in different orders. Here's the first one. We're scaling to a thick sound, maintaining the dark sound. Beat. beat, 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 beat. All right, awesome. We're now going to scale resonance up to a bright position. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cat, 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 cat. All right, awesome. Now we are going to scale our vocal weight back into a thinner position. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Bot, 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 bot. Perfect. And one final time, scaling down into that darker resonance. Here we go. Coat, 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 coat. All right, awesome. Great work so far. We're going to move on to the next set of exercises. This is going to be using those sentences that we tried before. So we're just going to pick any real sentences. Doesn't really matter what you're using here for this context, but I'm going to use some of the same ones we used from the session today. And we're going to try and scale the sentences just like we did during the lesson. So we're going to start with a sentence in one quadrant, scale it across to its inverse quadrant. We're going to start with these more outlier voice types, right? These ones that are more stereotypically common in character acting and that sort of stuff. The ones that are less typical for day-to-day speech. Again, they do exist, and I do need to stress that it is okay if you want to use those, and it is totally okay if you like the qualities of those. It's just the vast majority of people don't have voices like that, hence why we call them outliers. That is not a name that is being put on them in any sort of negative context. We're going to start in those ones. Once again, we're going to start with this sound here. We're going to be scaling from the dark and thin sound to the bright and thick sound. The first sentence we're going to use is, ashes scatter in the wind after an eruption. So it'll sound like this. Ashes scatter in the wind after an eruption. Ashes scatter in the wind
After an eruption. Ashes scatter in the wind after an eruption. Right? So starting in the initiating voice, transitioning across to the target, and repeating it in the target. Let's do it together. Here we go. Same sentence. 3, 2, 1.
Ashes scatter in the wind after an eruption.
Good. And now we'll transition across.
Ashes scatter in the wind
After an eruption. Awesome. And one last time, confirming it. Ashes scatter in the wind after an eruption. Perfect. All right. We're going to use another phrase now. So this time, across the street, I saw 2 of your friends. We're going to do the opposite motion. So starting thick and bright and going to thin and dark. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Across the street, I saw 2 of your friends. All right, and transitioning down. Across the street, I saw 2 of your friends. Awesome, and confirming now.
Across the street, I saw 2 of your friends.
Perfect. All right. Moving on, moving into the stereotypical masculine and feminine configurations. So just like in the session, we're going to start with the fem sound, transition down to the mask, and then we'll do the other one after. So the phrase is, outside of this room is a long, narrow hallway. So I'll demonstrate that now. Outside of this room is a long, narrow hallway. Outside of this room is a long, narrow hallway. Outside of this room is a long, narrow hallway. Good. Let's do it together. Here we go. Outside of this room is a long, narrow hallway. All right. And scaling now. Outside of this room is a long, narrow hallway. Good. And then repeating it. Outside of this room is a long, narrow hallway. Perfect. All right, we're going to do the opposite direction again. So going from mask to femme this time. The phrase is, everyone has an accent, even if they don't realize it. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Everyone has an accent, even if they don't realize it. And transitioning. Everyone has an accent, even if they don't realize it. Good. And now confirming. Everyone has an accent, even if they don't realize it. Awesome. Alrighty. We are now done with that exercise set. So make sure to practice that one with a bunch of different phrases. Try it with a bunch of different contexts as well in terms of like which ones you're picking to transition to and from for these phrases. You can try one phrase for all of them, but try multiple phrases. The last thing we're going to rediscuss is recovery words. And so that is something you can use to try and help either position yourself before you go to talk. In that case, we would refer to them as a priming word, or to help recover in an instance where you have maybe slipped a little in terms of your voice's configuration as you're talking. So these are going to be words that are used in either back channeling processes or when you're just trying to find a filler word as you're talking, trying to fill that space while you think of the next thing you want to say. These would be words like, yeah, right, okay, sure, stuff like that. The way to practice them is to first find whatever your current target voice is. For me, I'm going to demonstrate this using this hyper femme voice.
So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to brighten up my voice to get the best possible sound I can find. Cat, 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 cat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, check, check, check. And now that I've found that, I'm going to say my recovery word 10 times. Yeah. 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 There we go. Yeah, 10 times. And what you will have noticed is that I think aside from one of them, they were all basically identical. There was one where my pitch flubbed a little bit, but they're all pretty close to identical. Could have sounded like I was pressing play on something. All right. Pick a recovery word, and I want you to go ahead and do that same thing now. So I'll demonstrate it again, and you can just pause when you need to. This time I'm going to be doing a masculinized version of it. So if I'm... Again, starting down here maybe, and trying to thicken that sound across. Right, so... Beat, 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 beat. Okay, 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 okay. Good. So the context for why you would use these is so that you can just kind of
Once I say, once again, prime yourself before you go to speak, right? If you're talking with a friend and they're conversing with you, you're just nodding along, you're going, yeah, yeah, no, for sure.
Okay. Okay. I totally see where that, like, where you're coming from with that.
Right? You're using these sounds to get yourself into that position before you even go to speak. Or you're using them as you're talking. Let's say, for example, I'm speaking and all of a sudden I can feel my voice drifting and like
I'm just really not liking where my voice is trajecting to.
yeah, kind of like that. I can just use that word to immediately pop right back into position for where I actually want to be at. So you can just use them kind of like that. So add that one to your repertoire, right? No real need for me to sit and wait patiently as you practice it. You can just pause the video if you need to and re listen to those other clips. But yeah, that is it for today's session. Thank you all again so much for participating. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you next week. Take care.